Folks, we want to talk to you briefly about what's called Mission Apostle. It's a project that's been initiated by 4 presbyteries in South Carolina, and I just want to describe a little bit about what it's about. I was a pastor for many, many years and was successful, and the reason for that success was the reason for most churches' success, is that I was very good at creating internally inside the church lots of programs and environment through preaching and teaching and small groups and drama groups and music, creating an environment that was attractional to a lot of people. And so we grew by attracting people. But what I very quickly learned was that most of the people that were being attracted to the church were coming from other churches. And of course, what's happened over the last decades or so is that that sort of fishing pond has begun to become quite limited. And we're learning now that even though we do very good things inside our churches, we are really not reaching the increasing numbers of people in the communities and the neighborhoods where we live, for whom church is less and less an important part of their life, and the Christian story is less and less an important part of their life. So what this process is about is an invitation to you and your church to join in asking, what is God up to out there in the neighborhoods and communities where we live, where there are all these sorts of people who no longer participate in churches of any kind? And so we are beginning a process with the presbyteries, with groups of teams that are going to invite your church to come and to join with us and to participate in asking the question, how might we create some experiments in our local church in asking, what is God doing out in our communities, and how might we join with God, and what's that going to look like? And it is out of those experiments that we're going to learn together, by sharing stories across our different churches, new and fresh ways of being God's people in our neighborhoods and communities.
In some ways, I see what we're doing as an effort to become, in a sense, missionaries in our own culture, in our own context. And so it's a move from being preoccupied with the church and church programming and what's going on internally, to helping the church see itself as a witnessing community, a missionary community, reaching out into its particular community.
With the Mission Apostle initiative, we're making a huge shift in the way that we do church. We have traditionally, since my generation, it's always been disciple making. You go and make disciples so that your life can be better. What the Apostle program does is challenges us to not be self-centered, to not navel gaze all the time. It's to look outward. It's to go out into the world.
I believe that Mission Apostle is an opportunity for our churches to engage in a new thing that is really an old thing. And that has to do with being a missionary for God, for taking the gospel out into our neighborhoods and our communities, and engaging others who are not already active in church life, and sharing with them what God has blessed the church with.
It's the church moving outside the walls. Ellen Roxburgh has a term that has stuck with me, that, God has left the building. And God is at work in the neighborhood. And our task, if we are truly a missional church, is to get out into those neighborhoods and discern where God is already at work and join God in God's mission.
Well, I'm excited that we're having this discussion. I think it's long overdue that the church reflects on its responsibility in the world, what God has called us, to ask the question, what is God doing? What is His mission? How can we join Him in that? And so I think it's the right time, the right issues, the right questions, and I trust that it'll be something God will use as a catalyst to bring renewal and revival and transformation in our particular congregations, and as a consequence, in our communities.
What we've learned is that if you start with a very different question, which is, what's God up to out there ahead of us, and how do we learn to join with what God is up to, then the Spirit of God will take us on all kinds of adventures that we never expected, and in ways that we could never have planned. Our church is going to come alive and is going to grow with people meeting Christ through the gospel.